Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Bayou Bets for Thursday, July the 6th. I'm Zach Ewing with Spencer the Guru Urquhart. We'll be joined in about 15 minutes by Mikie Mahtook, former LSU baseball player. He himself won a national championship back in 2009, and now he has his own LSU talk show, if you will, and followed this year's LSU baseball team. And so it'll be good to talk to Mikie and get some perspective on how following this year's team compared to going through it in Omaha with his team 14 years ago, and kind of look at the past, present, and future of LSU baseball. So that's coming up at 4:15. Horace is here. Good afternoon to Horace. And speaking of Mikie Mahtook, Spencer, another Lafayette boy. So you know, how are you? Welcome into the show. We haven't been here for a week. We took the 4th of July weekend off.
Right. Yeah, it's getting back in the swing of things here. Still got a lot of LSU baseball to talk about. The MLB draft coming up. Skeens and Dylan Cruz expected to go high there. And then, it'll be fun to chop it up with Mikie because, he was on that 09 team that won it all. Hadn't had one to win it all until this year. So, it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We invite you all to subscribe to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel if you have not done so already. We air on lots of different social media channels, but if you're not able to catch the whole show live, the Bayou Bets YouTube channel is the best place to see the replay, or our producer Zoe kind of cuts up shorts of it, and you lose all the in-between stuff and get our most entertaining segments throughout the week. So check out the Bayou Bets YouTube channel, post some other live videos there throughout the week too. So if you're watching somewhere else, head on over there and hit that subscribe button for us. Well, Mikie Mahtook on at about 4:15. In the meantime, Spencer, we're going to get things started here with our headlines, and not a real busy time in the sports calendar, of course, but we do have Major League Baseball going on. The Braves have been red hot. I think they've won like 24 of their last 29 games or something like that. They have surpassed the Tampa Bay Rays for the best record in baseball. Also in Major League Baseball, we have a home run derby field for Monday, and the All-Star game is Tuesday. I'm really to the point where I think I don't personally feel this way, Spencer, but in the public consciousness, the home run derby has almost taken over the All-Star game as kind of the showpiece of next week.
Yeah, I can see that because they have so many big names in there. It's a lot of, individuals. It's easy to gravitate to them. Guys like Pete Alonso, Julio Rodriguez. So should be a lot of fun to see who comes out on top there. Alonso got dethroned last year. I think it was Juan Soto who won it all. And it was Julio, I think, who had knocked out Alonso. So it'd be fun to see them go at it again. I would think it's been like an every other year thing for Alonso. He seemed to do well in odd numbered years. So the trends say it should be his year, but this field's stacked again. So you never know.
The odd numbered years is a tried and true betting strategy.
Yeah, like the Giants with the San Francisco Giants, the even years. They won I think it was 2010, 2012, 2014.
Yeah, let's not follow that.
It's just fun. It's just fun.
Yeah.
It's just interesting. Yeah.
Jerry's here. What's up, Jerry? We will have Mikie Mahtook on in about 10 minutes as soon as he's in a meeting, and he's gonna run over here when he's done. So Novak Djokovic continues his Grand Slam chase at Wimbledon. And Damian Lillard wants out of Portland. We'll talk a little NBA free agency. You called this last week, Spencer. You said this is what could really spice up the NBA offseason is if Damian Lillard gets moved from the Blazers. Now, the thing about that is he wants basically to go to Miami and nowhere else but Miami. Hard to find two more different places than Portland and Miami, but that's where Lillard wants to go. The question is whether the Blazers will acquiesce to that request, and we'll talk more about that as we go too.
Right. Yeah, because James Harden, his name's still out there, but I feel like Damian Lillard's the domino that people are waiting to drop because he's the most coveted player right now on the trade block. So I think Boston could get in the mix here. As Jason Tatum said, he's like, they want Dame. Like Boston wants Dame there, especially since they got Marcus Smart got traded. They got Porzingis. They're going to have a need at point guard. So it'd be tough to fit that in under the cap. They'd be way over the cap and into the luxury tax. But interesting to see them in the mix because I feel like Dame might warm up to that idea because he definitely wants to go for a title. He's tired of being stuck on a team that's just not a true title contender. So if Boston enters the mix, I think we might have some action.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, something is going to happen there before too long, you would think. You're watching Bayou Bets on the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. Zach Ewing with Spencer the Guru Urquhart. We'll be joined by Mikie Mahtook here in a few minutes to talk some LSU baseball after their national championship. Getting through the summertime here, and before you know it, it'll be time. It'll be time for football. And with that, we're going to take a first glance at college football odds and a little bit of a kind of a preview of the preseason, if you will, Spencer. Look, when you're talking about college football, and specifically when you're talking about betting college football, you kind of have to make that decision. Do I want to go ahead and ride with the favorites because favorites win in college football more than any other sport? This is the last season with just 4 teams in the playoffs, so it's going to be hard for a kind of a Cinderella story to happen. Of course, TCU got all the way to the championship game last year, but then got blown out. So do you ride with a Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State, or do you want to go further down the card? And the first team not on this screen, and we'll show you the full list here, is LSU. They're at 12-1. Then you have USC, Clemson, Texas, Florida State, all around 20-1. What do you make of this, and where will you go with your card?
Yeah, I think this might be a year where I'd be willing to go a little further down the card than usual, because last year, you had Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud returning, and Georgia had an elite defense and stuff. So Georgia is still the rightful favorite, but I could see like an LSU or maybe even a Florida State stepping up and getting into that group of 4, and maybe making a push, because it's just Georgia. They've won two in a row now, and they had their tragic offseason. So I don't think that'll make them fall off, but I think they aren't going to be quite as dominant. So I don't see any value with them at plus 220. Bama could bounce back. I could see some value there. I mean, it's still Nick Saban. So at 6-1, maybe they could do it, but I don't really trust the Big Ten. I wouldn't mess with Ohio State or Michigan. I mean, they both should be good, but I don't really see that much value.
What do you make maybe a little further down the board? I agree with you. It feels like a three-peat is almost asking too much of Georgia. You're going to be battling complacency there. Alabama is going to be breaking in a new quarterback. You never want to count them out, but there's a reason that their odds are higher than they have been in years under Nick Saban. I mean, they're used to being in that plus 200, plus 300 range. Don't have an established quarterback, so you see them at 600. Same story for Ohio State at 750. I'm looking a little bit further down at those USC and Clemson numbers. We know Caleb Williams will be at USC. We know Clemson has Cade Plotnick. And then maybe even further down to like a Texas A&M, who I know, like, they let everybody down last year. We were talking a year ago, and I know Jim Derry was on here saying how much he loved Texas A&M as kind of a dark horse. They let everybody down, and so now you've got a similarly talented team, but lower expectations, a better number on the odds. I still don't know if 28-1 is value. I don't know if it's worth betting, but that's a team I've got my eye on.
Yeah, they could maybe be interesting. At Jimbo, they're definitely going to be out for vengeance because they got embarrassed last year after he made the comments. They had the little beef with Saban, and Alabama wasn't as good either, but at least they were still in contention. A&M was a total disaster, but at least they beat LSU at the end. They showed a little sign of life there, and they've definitely got talent over there at the NIL money. So I could see them getting back to the 8-9 win range. I don't think they'll be a national title contender, but I definitely see them having an improved season.
Yeah, I just think you got to kind of look for those storylines. Like, people are down on A&M. They had a terrible year last year. This is still a roster littered with 4- and 5-star recruits as much as any team in the country. And that's how you win championships in college football. I mean, individual recruiting rankings may not matter. You hear it every year during the NFL draft that a 2-star kid got drafted in the first round and made something of himself. And those stories do exist. But for the most part, the teams that win college football national championships are the same teams that win the recruiting battles. And Texas A&M has won as many recruiting battles as anybody, up to and including Alabama and Georgia over the past couple of years. And you're going to start to see them in the mix. And I look at that number compared to what you would have to pay to get Alabama, Ohio State, especially Georgia. And that's where, as a bettor, my eyes light up with a little bit of value. So I'm thinking about that. Speaking of which, I wanted to take a look at SEC win totals here as we're waiting on Mikie Mahtook should be here in the next 5 minutes or so to talk some LSU baseball. But you see LSU's number in the middle on the western side. They're at 9.5 and actually juiced slightly to go over that. Anything else here catch your eye? Because I look at A&M again. You're getting plus money to take them over 8.5 wins. That's something I'm interested in. They obviously have to figure out the quarterback situation. But if you look at their non-conference schedule, it's not it's pretty manageable, and it's not something I feel like they can't get to 9 wins. It's I think at Miami is their big ticket non-conference game. You win that game, all of a sudden you're looking at maybe just needing to go 5-3 in the SEC to hit that number.
For sure. Yeah, I could see some value there because they definitely have the talent. The thing that kind of catches my eye, I think South Carolina could have a good year this year. Spencer Rattler's back, and he's showing some improvement over there. I think they could win 7 or 8. So, I mean, over 6.5 could be some value. It's probably more to unders, minus 140. So you're probably getting better, more like probably around even money, I would think, to take the over. So that's one that kind of caught my eye. Florida, man, they're down at 5.5. I guess they're expecting. I know Napier, he was a great coach at UL, so I don't know. They seem like they're not really trending in the right direction, so I'll probably
you
stay
got
away
burned on
from
them
that.
last year, didn't you?
Exactly. So let's say maybe Auburn or Arkansas over 7 could be interesting. I feel like probably Arkansas more so because they'll have their quarterback returning. They have some decent talent over there. Just being in the West, though, it makes it a little tougher.
Yeah. I do want to correct one thing on Florida. That the over is minus 150 on that 5.5 win. So they are juiced to go over the 5.5. But it is crazy to see Florida with the second lowest win total of any SEC team. And part of that is their big non-conference games. Florida State, they're going to be an underdog in that game, so that's difficult. How about Alabama 10.5 and expected to go under, meaning expected to lose 2 games, and 10.5 a sky high win total. These win totals, by the way, don't include a bowl game or an SEC championship game or the playoff. I mean, they're just regular season. So, they're expected to lose a couple. They do get Texas at home as their big non-conference game. We know how difficult the SEC West is. We talked about that with LSU, but Alabama actually expected to lose a couple of games according to these odds.
Right. Yeah, I think it has to do with the uncertainty at QB. I'd be tempted to take the over, though, because we've seen it time and time again. These Nick Saban teams tend to rise to the occasion, and we know they have a lot of talent on both sides. So I think whoever wins the quarterback battle will hold it down enough for them to win 11. So I'll take the over. It won't be one I hammer because they always seem to have a game where they kind of slip up, and in that case, they usually pull it out, but sometimes they'll lose. So I'm going to just bank on them, though, pulling it out and take the over.
I think it is an opportunity to maybe buy Alabama, not low, but a little bit lower than you usually get them. LSU, 9.5 on the win total. This first game, this opener, and maybe we'll ask Mikie about this. Mikie just said he's about 2 minutes away from joining us, so we're expecting Mikie Mahtook, former LSU Major League Baseball player. He'll be on here in a couple of minutes. In the meantime, LSU Florida State football opener in Orlando. This is the Sunday of week 1, so it's the day before Labor Day, just like they played last year down in the Superdome. This will be in Orlando. LSU, a slight favorite over Florida State. And you hate to sit there and say, oh, this is the whole season. But if you lose this game, the path to getting into the college football playoff suddenly becomes a lot narrower. You really have to probably win the SEC in order to do it. Now, you may need to win the SEC to get into the college football playoff anyway. But regardless, as far as non-conference games go, this is about as big as it gets early in the season.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. This is a tone setter because I feel like both of these teams have college football playoff aspirations. I actually prefer Florida State over Clemson, as Florida State has the more experienced quarterback, the redshirt senior there, and then the good running back, Trey Benson. So I think this Florida State team could be dangerous. And just after last year, LSU had them, and then the debacle with should they have gone for 2 and all that. So it's like I think LSU gets their revenge in this one, but it's going to be a tight game. Should be a lot of fun to watch. Jaden Daniels against, I believe it's Jordan Travis, the Florida State QB. Should be a fun battle.
Yeah, 100%. You talk about a tone setter. I mean, Jaden Daniels coming back for his senior season. He's got, I think, 11 to 1 odds. It's 10 to 1 odds, actually, at Caesar Sportsbook to win the Heisman Trophy, which is tied for the second lowest with Quinn Ewers, the Texas quarterback, Caleb Williams of USC, who won it last year. He's the favorite, plus 550. Jordan Travis then is not too far down at plus 1,400. So, and you talk about the Clemson quarterback, Clay Klubnik, he's also 1,400. So it could be a tone setter for the Heisman Trophy race as well. I mean, just a huge deal. Less than 2 months away from it now. I think it's 59 days from today will be, 59 days from today, and then 63 days, 9 weeks from today, the NFL season begins. So football is right around the corner. Rose Marie says the Tigers will win. And I tell you what, man, the way LSU sports are going, it's hard not to be optimistic. I mean, you look at what Brian Kelly did in his first year. You look at what Kim Mulkey did in her second year, what Jay Johnson did in his second year. Even basketball, Matt McMahon, kind of a rough first year, but the basketball program has some other obstacles. Maybe they'll get over them, maybe they won't. But I mean, every other sport, you look at LSU, and it's nothing but reason for optimism. And that's a good way to transition. Is we're just about a minute away here from Mikie Mahtook being on with LSU baseball. Like, look, I think the town is still kind of buzzing. And Spencer, you live in New Orleans. Maybe it is down there too. I don't know. But like that run in Omaha was electric for these fans. And part of it was you knew you had a good team going in, and the expectations have always been there. But they lost a game early. You never know if you're actually going to come through. And for them to come through, it was just terrific theater, especially the way they did it in a couple of those games.
Right, yeah, that Wake Forest game when there was the pitchers duel with the Skeens and his name slipping my mind. Louder, yeah, dude with the long hair. Yeah, that was that was epic. I was on vacation during that one. One of my buddies had it on his phone and we were watching. I was like, yeah, that was that was some fun stuff. So I can see why the town's still buzzing, because it's just it was remarkable considering that they were the favorite for so much of the year. Then had that little lull period there down the stretch. But as me and Jim talked about a couple of weeks ago, it's probably good that they had that. It seemed to help them kind of get back on track, recharge for the big run. And sure enough, they're able to pull through and then get it done.
Yep. And exciting stuff. And we're happy to have Mikie Mahtook on, former LSU baseball player, national champion himself, former major leaguer, now hosts his show Mic'd Up on YouTube. And let's get Mikey on. Daniel Barry says, what's up? What's up, Daniel? And Mikey's here. Whoops. I think we put him in and took him out at the same time. So, Mikey, thanks for being here, man. Can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear y'all. Can you hear me?
Yeah, appreciate you being here, man. And
thanks for having me.
We're going to mess with the screen just a little bit to make sure everybody can see everybody here.
Let's my dog. Let's make Mikey. My dog's in the background, so when he moves around,
make Mikey and his best friend our feature presentation here. Get my mug out of here. Mikey, how are you, man? And are you still buzzing from the Omaha experience?
Yeah, I'm great. Man, it was unbelievable to watch. I was, fortunate to be a small part of that. Obviously, I didn't do anything on the field, but I was able to get to know some of the players and some of the dads of the players, and to be able to build some of those relationships, and built a relationship with Jay. So to be able to watch those guys be able to go out there and bring back a national championship here in Baton Rouge. It's been 14 years since the last national championship, 2009, for us. And so to see those guys come in the season with those type of expectations and be able to follow through, and they had some adversity and they went through some ups and downs, and to be able to come through it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be in Omaha myself and asked Jay after they won the championship if he felt sort of that pressure and expectation of leading this LSU program that's had so much success, so much history and tradition, but hadn't won in 14 years, which for most programs, I mean, you don't win more than every 14, right. 15, 20 years. I mean, it's just not, but at LSU, that's the expectation. You were a part of that last LSU team. Did you kind of feel that pressure for Jay as far as like, hey, LSU's got to get back on the board here?
I think I felt the pressure. It wasn't because of, he's the head coach, you have to win because it's LSU. I think the pressure was because of the team that he had, right? And And, he came in and he inherited a team that had a bunch of talented guys. He had Dylan Cruz, who's going to go 1 or 2 overall in the draft. And he had a bunch of guys, Trey Morgan, a bunch of guys that were already here. Ty Floyd was one of those guys. And so then he brings in some of these transfers. You have, Paul Skeens, and you have Tommy White, and you bring in Thatcher Hurd, and you bring in some of these other guys to fill this void. And now you have a super team, and you have a team that is, far and away the most talented team in the country, preseason number 1. And, then you lose 3 of your top bullpen guys. You lose 3 guys that throw 95 to 100 miles an hour out the bullpen. You got to figure some stuff out, piece some stuff together. And so I think the pressure was more because of the talent he had, not necessarily because, he's at LSU, you have to win one. Like, they haven't won one in a while. I think he knew he needed to make a run. But with the team he had, I felt that pressure. And I know, I've asked him about it a few times, and, he's going to give us that standard answer. And, I came here for those expectations. And so to be able to go through, like, winning a national championship, especially in baseball, is extremely hard, right? Because there's a lot of things that can go, against you. You face a guy on the mound who is, has his best stuff, and your lineup doesn't score runs, and you end up losing a game you shouldn't lose, and things like that. So baseball is really hard. So to be able to go there, start the season number 1 in the country, to be able to go through that 3 or 4 week period where they weren't playing great baseball, kind of lost that number 1 ranking, and then in the season number 1, I think it was a huge thing for him. And I think now he can kind of, exhale. I know he's not going to do that, knowing his personality, but he can finally take a deep breath and be like, oh, okay, I won one, not satisfied, not content, but now that pressure of, you have the best team ever possibly to come through LSU, you have to win with it. And he was able to do that.
Talking with Mikie Mahtook here on Bayou Bets. Mikie, let's go back and look at some of LSU's. These are either championship games or the game that finished off the College World Series in their 7 national titles. Of course, you were a part of that 2009 team. That was the last team to do it. What do you remember about that, even today? And how did watching this team go through their Omaha March kind of bring back those memories for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was a freshman in 2009, and I was on a team that had gone through everything that you can imagine in college baseball. The first year, the juniors and the seniors on that team in 2007 were they did not have a very good team. Coach Maneri's first year was that year, and he tried to push out some guys that didn't really fit what he was looking to do. And they were, I think, 29, 26-1 or something like that in that first year, and they weren't very good. The next year, they were having another, average season, and then all of a sudden it clicked, and they won 23 straight games and made a run to the postseason. Went to Omaha, went 1-2 in Omaha, and a lot of those guys were back in 2009. So entering that 2009 season, they had these same expectations that this current 2023 team had, where you're the preseason number 1 team in the country. Everybody's expecting you to make a deep run. Everybody's expecting you to be the favorite to win the national championship. And as a freshman, I was just trying to find a place to play. I was just trying to be a part of that. Like, I understood the depth. I understood, kind of where everything was going. And then I was able to find my way in the lineup, and I didn't have to, get out of the lineup, and I was able to find my stride and be a part of that run. And then when you got to Omaha, man, it was, our postseason run that year, we lost our first game in the SEC tournament to Vanderbilt. And then we ended up winning the SEC tournament. We swept our regional, swept our super regional, swept through Omaha up until that first game against Texas. And we were losing. And DJ LeMahieu hit a 2-out, 2-run double in the top of the 9th inning to tie the game, to put us into extra innings. And then I got the base hit in the 11th to go ahead. And then they dominated us the next game 5-1. And then the third game, it was 4-4, I think, in the 6th inning. And I hit a RBI double in the 6th. And then the floodgates kind of opened, and we ended up, pulling away and winning 11-4. And what I remember most was you just kind of feel like everybody, once it ended, it was just like, damn, like, it's over now. Like, we didn't want it to end. Like, we were such a close-knit group of guys. And this 2023 team gives me that kind of same vibe. I'm talking to all the guys and getting to know them. That team was extremely close. They understood the expectations. They embraced the expectations. And, when that season ended, it was almost like, man, it was great, but like, now what do we do? Like, now what? Now we're leaving. The team's not going to be the same. All of our friends are gone, and you're just going to have to, make those adjustments going into the next year.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Dylan Cruz and Paul Skeens, who will be possibly the top two picks in the draft, and you played Major League Baseball and you played big games in big stadiums, and had those moments. But nothing's ever quite the same as those college years when you got bus rides with those guys and classes with them, and then you go to Omaha together. I mean, I imagine that even in the rest of your career, nothing could quite replace that.
No, I mean, you said it right. Nothing compares to that college experience, right? And you're with these guys all day, every day. You're working out with them. You're going to school. You are, going through some of these same, battles and issues that everyone else on the team is going through. You're also trying to figure out like who you are as a person, trying to figure out how to navigate life without being at home and trying to grow up. And so you're all doing that together. And so you kind of build this bond with each other along the way. And you don't really get that in professional baseball. Like, you build some really good relationships in pro ball. Don't get me wrong. Like, I have some of my really good friends, some of my best friends are from pro ball, but a lot of these guys you're competing against, and it's just hard to build those tight, close knit relationships because, tomorrow that guy may get traded or released, or, you may get moved, or you may, like maybe that it's another outfielder and he takes your spot and he gets called up or something like that. And so it's a different dynamic, but you're still able to make those relationships. Nothing compares to college though. It's just, it's those 4 years, 3-4 years of your life when you're here in school. They're very impressionable. Like, you grow a lot in those 3 years, and, to grow with these guys and be able to win a national championship with those guys, those are lasting friendships that are going to be there forever.
We're here on Bayou Bets. We're talking with Mikie Mahtook. He's the host of Miked Up. That's MIK_D up on Twitter and on YouTube, excuse me. And you can find him on Twitter also, Mikie Mahtook. Mikie, this year's team, and we look at the run here that they made in Omaha, much like you guys, they swept through the regional, super regional, not really challenged in those lead up tournaments. In Omaha, they were, though. They lose to Wake Forest in day 2. Did you at that point feel like, hey, this is just not going to work out? I mean, they used Skeens at that point. They'd used Ty Floyd. They're going to have to come back, beat Tennessee and beat Wake Forest twice, 3 games in 3 days just to get to the championship series.
Yeah, I don't want to say that I didn't think they could do it, because I really did. I thought they were going to do it a different way, though. I thought they were going to do it by scoring a whole bunch of runs and giving the pitching staff a bigger cushion to where they can just, throw with confidence and not worry about giving up runs. And in reality, it was opposite. And I think that may have been the better thing, right? Because if LSU scoring a bunch of runs, and you'd imagine the other team is probably going to score some runs because it's an offensive ballpark at the time playing that way. It played the opposite, right? If wind was blowing in, was not playing offensive. And so I think that gave those guys that coming out of the bullpen and those guys who are getting spot starts the confidence to say, you know what, I'm going to go out there. I'm just going to throw strikes. I'm going to make them beat us with getting a bunch of base hits or trying to drive the ball at the ballpark. And by doing that, they're able to get ahead of guys. They're able to get some long flyouts, and they're able to work deeper in games. And so after they lost that game, I didn't want to say that I didn't think they could do it. I just thought that it obviously was going to be an uphill climb, and I thought they were going to do it a different way. But then you have, Ackenhausen pitched to Jim. And you had, Riley Cooper was unbelievable. I think he had 3 saves and a win in Omaha. Like, that doesn't happen, right? Like, he was unbelievable coming out of the bullpen. You had guys step up when they needed to. And then,
you need that, right? I mean, you talked about you as a freshman, Mikie, like, you need those guys who you don't necessarily expect to be leaning on. You need them to come through.
Absolutely. Look, when we lost the first game of the SC tournament that year in 2009, the guy who pitched the championship game of the tournament was Ryan Bird. And Ryan Bird didn't have any innings basically throughout the course of the year. He went 7 innings gave up 1 run in Hoover. So, like, you need guys to be able to step up, especially if you're not, winning and you're not putting yourself in that position to where, okay, we have the max amount of days off. We're going to be on our rotation constantly. We're not going to have to, mess with the top 3 starters. And so when you lose a game, you need some guys to step up. And Ackenhausen did an unbelievable job of doing that. Riley Cooper did an unbelievable job of doing it. Ty Floyd's outing against Wake Forest, or no, against Florida with a 17 strikeouts. Like, he did it, right? Like, Thatcher Hurd did it. Like, you had these guys, everybody had a role and everybody stepped up and they picked up their teammates when they had to. And I think that's the sign of a national championship team. And obviously, that's the reason why they won.
Yeah, most definitely, Mikey. So I had a question for you about just kind of like going back to the college experience thing, because I saw like how Dylan Cruz, he could have gone to the MLB draft and instead decided to go to college and ends up winning a national title and now going to be an early pick. Do you see this being maybe a trend as far as more guys opting to go to school as opposed to going into the draft straight out of high school, even if they're like a top prospect like him?
I do. I mean, I was not the prospect Dylan Cruz was coming out of high school. Like, I was not going to get $3, $4, $5 million, whatever the price tag on him was coming out of high school. But, I had some conversations and, there was an opportunity for me, if I said I want to go, to get drafted high enough to where, okay, I could go. And I wasn't ready mentally. Physically, I think I could have handled it. Mentally, I was not, and I wanted to go to school. And then by going to school and experiencing that, I've always said it up before, like probably a year or two after I left college, I said, what I got out of college, whether I won a national championship or not, I valued my experience in college at $3 million. Like, you had to pay me $3 million out of high school for me to pass up the draft. Right. And so then talking with Dylan Cruz and watching him progress as an athlete and as a baseball player and as a teammate, like, I think he learned a lot about himself. His freshman year, he was obviously the freshman of the year. He did what he needed to do. His junior year, sophomore year, he was unbelievable. His junior year, he had video game numbers, but every year he realized and he developed and he realized who he was as a player. His first year, he was a freshman. He just did what he needed to do, led by example, never really said much. His junior year, he was a lot more vocal. You could see him show the emotion. I think he developed more as a player that way, not like mentally, emotionally, not necessarily physically. And so I think that people forget about that when you go out of high school, because you're still only 18 and you have a lot of emotional development that you still need to do. And you still need to grow and you still need to learn about yourself. And so look, nowadays, the way they move guys in professional baseball, how quick they move guys up the ranks, like, you get drafted out of high school, you're going to go to short season, you're going to go to another short season, you're going to go to A-ball, you're going to go to Double-A, unless you're Mike Trout and you're doing unbelievable and you get thrown up and you get to the big leagues at 21, that's very rare. But if you go to college and you play at LSU and you have the high level of success that Dylan Cruz had, now you're going to go and get drafted first round, second round, whatever, and you are going to have the opportunity when you get drafted to be at that same spot that you would have been had you got drafted out of high school. Like, Dylan Cruz is probably going to start in high A, Double-A next year. A guy who would have gotten drafted 3 years out of high school is probably in A-ball or high A and probably starting the same way. And Dylan Cruz is going to be able to go this way, and the other guy is still trying to develop. So, I think the way baseball is structured, I think there's a lot of value now in college. And now with the Major League Baseball draft being only 20 rounds and them not being able to take flyers on these guys and be able to pay these guys, $2 million in the 10th round like they used to in the past, I think you're going to start seeing a lot more talent come into college and, in particular the SEC.
Yeah, and I think that sets up really well for LSU. I mean, we'll look back at this again, and Skip Bertman, built this thing, and LSU's got its own in-house documentary that they call the Powerhouse, and that's really what LSU is. So at a school that values baseball as LSU does, at a school where they've won 7 national titles, which is second only to USC, which has 12, most of those, pre-1980, they are in a great position to take advantage of that trend, Mikey. I mean, we're like, you talk about NIL money and you see these guys' faces on billboards all around Baton Rouge. Like, I don't want to sit here and say Jay Johnson's going to win 5 national titles, because you just can't expect that in modern day college baseball anymore. But they're as well set up as any school in the country to take advantage of the NIL era and trying to convince guys who otherwise would go to the draft to come play at the box for 3 years.
Absolutely. Not only are they LSU and have 7 national championships and, have the social media following and have all of those types of things with NIL, you're also going to the best baseball conference in college baseball, right? Like you're going to the SEC. So you're coming to the best baseball conference with the best baseball school. So having those combined, like you're going to be here. And I've always said this, if you're good enough to get drafted in the first round out of high school and get paid that much money, or second round of high school and get paid all this money, then if you're that good and you go to college, you're going to get paid more. Like you're going to increase your value in college because you're going to be playing against guys who are going to be AA, AAA, big leaguers, right? Every single day while you're here in the SEC. And, you know, I used to say it all the time, when I got drafted, I compared the SEC to high A baseball, right? Like I think your top two starters back then were AA caliber. Like they were going to have a long career in pro ball, and they were going to make their way, and the lineups were pretty solid. But, you know, you probably had one or two guys out of the bullpen, right? Back then. That's why I said able. Now you have 4 or 5 guys out of the bullpen throwing mid to upper 90s. You have 3 starters that are throwing mid to upper 90s, and you have a lineup full of guys who can drive the ball out of the ballpark. And for me, that is very equivalent to the AA talent. So coming to college and playing in the SEC, you're going to face that every single weekend. I don't care if you're facing Missouri or Kentucky or whoever, you're facing that type of talent. And so if you're that good to get that much money out of high school, and you come to LSU and you go and you perform and you prove that you are that, you're going to get double, triple the amount. Look, Dylan Cruz could have signed for $4 million out of high school. He's going to sign for almost $10 million now. So, like, I think that ROI was pretty good on his part.
Yeah, and there's obviously some risk involved in each case. Is
for
different,
sure.
But if you are going to go the college route, LSU, I mean, it almost sells itself. And Jay Johnson does a great job of selling it whenever he can. Like, you know, hey, come play here, which is his job. And so I want to transition that into talking a little bit about the draft, which is Sunday night. Dylan Cruz, Paul Skeens, you hear the odds for the number 1 pick, and they've actually been moving backward for both LSU guys to where now there's a chance, maybe this Max Clark out of Franklin, I think it's Franklin Community High School in Indiana, or Wyatt Langford of Florida, maybe they have a chance to be the number 1 pick. And maybe that happens. We'll see what the Pirates do. The Pirates have a history of saving money and going below slot with their first pick, and so maybe that's where some of that is coming from. But let's just limit the discussion to the LSU guys. Mikey, who would you take at number 1? I'll put you on the spot.
Listen, I'm so happy I don't have to make that decision because I don't think there's a wrong answer. I don't think there's a right answer, right? I think that it's based off of needs. Like the Pirates are notorious for not spending money, right? I know what they're trying to do. Maybe they can get a guy under slot first overall and be able to pay another guy more money later on in the draft and basically have 2 high-end first-round picks based off the money, right? Doesn't always work out that way, and you may end up having to overpay for a guy that doesn't deserve that much money, and you probably should have taken Paul Skeens. But if you're the Pirates and you have the ability to draft a guy, right? And like Dylan Cruz, I think should be a number 1 pick this year. I think Paul Skeens are both number 1 picks. I really do. Dylan Cruz is an everyday guy. He can be out in center field and you can play him every single day in the lineup. And so there's a lot of value there because you're going to get the use out of him every day. Paul Skeens you get once every 5 days. But a top end starter in the big leagues is worth $200+ million right now. By the time Paul Skeens is in free agency, that market's probably going to be up to $300 million, $400 million, right? And so you're able to get a guy like Paul Skeens at $9 million, $9.5 million first overall. He should not spend 1 day in minor league baseball. Like, I think he is major league ready right now. I think you can put him on a big major league roster right now, and he's a number 3 starter at worst right now in the big leagues. I think he's number 1 stuff. I only put him at number 3 right now because of the big league experience. The big league experience.
All good, man.
For having that experience on the mound. But I think he has number 1 stuff. So you get him for $9.5 million. You have his rights for 6 years. So you don't technically have to give him a contract until he's 6 years into Major League Baseball. You're going to get through arbitration. By the time he's a free agent, he's probably going to be, if he stays healthy, he's probably going to be worth $400 million. He's the best pitching prospect to come out of college baseball, I think, since Mark Pryor. People keep saying Garrett Cole and Strasburg. I think he's better than those 2 guys coming out of college right now. He doesn't have a ton of innings on his arm. If I'm the Pirates, I don't see how you can pass up on that. But I also don't see if they take Dylan Cruz, I think you get a 15-year big leaguer that's going to be on an all-star team, and you have him every single day. So I'm giving you the political answer. I'm talking around your question, so I don't have to really answer it. But if I had to guess out of those two guys who's going to go number one, I think they're going to take Paul Skeens. And I know, look, Dylan Cruz has Boris as an agent. That's another curveball for the Pirates, because Boris is not going to give the Pirates a discount. And Boris is already coming out. I don't know if it's Boris. I'm not saying it's Boris, but there's rumors that Dylan Cruz has come out and said that he'd rather play for the Nationals. And to me, that's a Scott Boras move right there, so that he can, float it out there and the Nationals draft him and you get paid the, $10 million or whatever that bonus is. But if you're the Pirates, I think the safest bet, I think the best bet is to take Paul Skeens. But knowing them, they're going to try to do something crazy and mess it all up.
I'll tell you this: if the Pirates take Max Clark with the number one pick, and I'm not saying I don't know anything about Max Clark. I'm not a scout. I'm sure he's a good player, or at least has a high ceiling. But I'll tell you who's going to be very, very happy with that is the Detroit Tigers, who are picking at number 3, because then they're getting one of these LSU guys, which is one of your former teams, Mikey, the Detroit Tigers. So that would be interesting. Spencer, what do you think? Who are you taking number 1?
Oh, if I'm the Pirates, you got to go Paul Skeens, because their pitching is really bad right now. They've got a pretty good lineup going. They got on that hot streak early on, but lately they've come back to earth because they're pitching. So to me, if they don't take Paul Skeens, and it wouldn't shock me, because like Mikey said, they're known for making cheap decisions. But to me, in this case, you've got to spend up and take Skeens. Got to give your fan base some sort of hope.
Well, and here's the other thing, right? Here's the other thing. The Pirates are actually winning, right? I think they're struggling a little bit lately, but they have a chance to make the postseason. Like, they have a chance to make a run in the postseason this year. And I don't know. I haven't looked at the standings recently. I don't know exactly where they are. I know about 2 or 3 weeks ago, they were still, I think, first or second place in their division. Like, they're in the playoff picture. If you make the postseason, if you draft Paul Skeens, you can have him pitching out of the bullpen in September and in the postseason. Like, that is an arm that you don't have that you can use. And there's precedent for that. Like, you had, Andrew Miller did it. You had David Price did it. You had Finnegan did it from TCU. You had Crochet did it with the White Sox out of Tennessee. Like, you have guys that have done that in the past. And if you're committed to winning and you want to win, you have the ability to draft a guy who can pitch for your team right now in the postseason in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, and I think even beyond that, like, if you have the chance to take the number 1 starter, as you said, Mikey, for the next 10 years for your team, or maybe some of these guys get bought out before their ARB years, whatever. Even if not, at least for 6 years, you got to go do that, and then see where the rest takes you. And there's obviously pitchers have a higher injury risk than position players. All those sorts of things are factors. But with what Paul Skeens did this year, the scouts are just drooling over what his stuff did in college and at the SEC, which, as you mentioned, is at least like a high A level, if not higher than that, especially when you're talking about playing the best teams. He's already dominating that level. So you could certainly do worse than that. I want to transition that before we let you go, Mikey, into and I know you've been distracted by LSU's baseball run, but a little Major League talk.
Yep.
It is the midseason point. The Braves have the best record in baseball. They're the World Series favorites. Is that your team to beat? Do you have your eye on somebody else? What's your
it's
finger
crazy.
on the pulse?
It's crazy because I'm looking at the odds on the screen right now. It's like every year I feel like it's the same 3-4 teams. Like, the Rays, to me, have figured out baseball. Like, they're the one team in professional baseball that they don't have to pay guys, but they understand how to develop. They understand how to structure their team to where they have a very low payroll, but they're always winning and they're always in the postseason. But they haven't really gotten over the hump yet. I love the Braves. I think the Braves are probably the most complete team right now. I know they're the favorites to win it. The Rangers, to me, are very interesting because the Rangers have some arms. I know they lost DeGrom, and I think that's a big issue for them. But it's hard for me to bet against the Braves, right? It's hard for me to say, hey, look, they've been there, they've done that. They have a lot of guys that have the experience. Matt, Olson's doing. It's just I don't want to pick the favorite. Like, that's just to me, it feels like a cop out. But to me, they feel like they're the most complete team.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do think, as far as betting is concerned, it's tough to take him at that price. I bet when the playoffs start, it's not a whole lot lower than that. So
I tell
I
you
think you
what,
wait if you want to bet the Braves.
can you put that screen back up there for me for a
Yep.
second? If you want a bet that's a pretty good bargain, that I think that has a chance to have a really big second half, I like the Blue Jays at plus 2,000.
Man, took the words out of my mouth. I was actually just going to say, and Spencer, I want to get your take on this too, but the Blue Jays, Alek Manoah has been absolutely horrible. They sent him down to the minors, to rework his delivery, all those sorts of things. A couple of weeks ago, and he made a minor league start and got lit up for like 11 runs in 2 innings or something. Well, they brought him back. They're starting him tomorrow. And I will say this right now: and I think it's against Detroit, who doesn't have a good lineup. If Alek Manoah shoves tomorrow, that number might come down from 20-1 to 15-1 in one day, just because it's like, oh, they got their ace back,
Right.
and that's a big deal in playoff baseball.
Right. And can I say this about a rehab start or a minor league start? When these guys that are big leaguers come back to minor leagues and they have one of those rehab starts, or hey, get right start, they're working on certain things, right? So they're not worried about getting guys out necessarily. They're worried about, okay, let me make sure that I'm doing what I need to work on, right? And then when that guy goes to in the minor leagues, the minor league lineup, the opposing lineup, they're trying to ambush this guy. They're trying to be super aggressive. Like, they're not working counts. They are going at him. So it's usually when you see that, guys will have really high, numbers given up or runs given up and hits given up, because they're not really focused on really competing and trying to get these guys out. They're not looking at scouting reports on these guys. They're really only worried about one thing, and that's getting themselves right and figuring out what went wrong so they can get back to the big league. So I wouldn't look too much into those numbers. I didn't get to see the start. I didn't get to see, what he looked like. But just from my experience, that's usually what happens when some of these big league guys get lit up in minor league starts.
That's a great point. It's a great point. Spencer, you look at these World Series odds. What do you see?
Yeah, on the deeper down the board, I kind of like the Phillies at 30-1. I know they had made the run last year, but I see them getting some momentum going, and I feel like their team this year is better. They got Trey Turner and stuff, got a solid rotation, better bullpen. So I think at that price, I can see myself taking a shot on them. But like Mikey said, the Braves are just so freaking good right now. It's hard to bet against them, but the Phillies being in that division's pretty tough, because, the Mets with Verlander and Scherzer could come up a little bit. And the Marlins have been playing amazing ball lately. I know the talent's a little lacking there, but kind of like the Rays, they seem like they've kind of just figured out how to play baseball and have been scrapping out wins there. So I think someone from the NL East is going to make it out of the NL. If I had to pick one from a value perspective, I'd go Philly, but Braves are definitely the favorite.
The Angels just need to pack it up and go home, man. They just can't get right. They can't figure it out. All three superstars they have on their team are hurt, so that's a tough ticket right there.
You can't trade Ohtani yet, can you? I mean, I know he's going to be a free agent. He probably leaves. I mean, do you think about it?
I mean, I think that what you have to. Here's the deal. You're not going to be able to get what you could have gotten you're not going to be able to get the max package for Ohtani. You're just not, because you're giving him for, 2-3 months. You're giving him as a loaner to one of these teams. Now, maybe a team that has a lot of resources will go get him and say, okay, this is going to take us over the edge. We're going to get to the World Series. I'm not worried about the next 4 years. I'm worried about this year, and then we'll figure out the free agency. Ohtani's going to get paid. This is unbelievable. It's just, he's going to get paid in free agency as an elite pitcher and as an elite hitter, right? Combined. So he's going to reset the market of nobody's like him, and the money he's going to get in free agency is pretty outrageous. I don't think the Angels are going to be able to give it to him. I don't think he wants to go back to the Angels because they haven't won when he's there, and he wants to win a World Series and do all of those types of things. So I think you have to trade him. I think if you want to be able to get, unless the first couple weeks out of the All-Star break, you come out like gangbusters and you're just winning every game, I think you have to get rid of him to be able to at least get something to set yourself up. Because if you don't win and you don't trade him, you are literally getting nothing. You're losing the best superstar. You're going to lose a fan base. You're not going to get any resources for him. And it's just, you wasted the Ohtani years, which were unbelievable. Like he did I think he's exceeded any expectation anybody's ever had for him.
Yeah, he's the true definition of a unicorn. Like you just
Yeah.
might never see it again.
Never. I mean, people keep talking about Caglione. Like, I get it. The guy can throw hard. He hits homers, but he's not as dominant on the mound as Ohtani. It's just nobody. You may not ever see that again. You really won't.
Yeah, to be elite at both is amazing. So, speaking of elite, Mikey, we appreciate it, man. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
That's
Mikey.
Mikie Mahtook of Mic'd Up. You can catch him on YouTube, MIK''D up on YouTube. That's his show. I believe it airs on Mondays and Thursdays. So we thank Mikey for dropping by. And we're about to wrap up our show, Spencer. We got a couple of rants to go. We'll be back on Monday. We'll talk some home run derby. That's the home run derby. Might certainly get into some more college football and NFL stuff. But we hope you enjoyed the visit with Mikey as much as we did. Now, I want to end with a couple of rants, and we talked about this at the top of the show, the Blazers. Damian Lillard told the Blazers that he wants to be traded, which is not new, of course, in any sport, and certainly not in the NBA, which has entered an era of really player ownership in terms of players being able to have a say in what their future is, even after they've signed contracts. And that's all well and good. I think players should have a say in this. But here's where I think that narrative goes a little too far. Damian Lillard has not only said that he wants to be traded, he has said that he wants to be traded to the Miami Heat. He has a no trade clause and essentially has told the Trailblazers that if you don't trade me, I'll be a disgruntled citizen. I'm not, maybe he'll hold out. Maybe he won't play. Maybe he'll play, but kind of not be a team player and be upset about it the whole time. Basically trying to force his way not only out of Portland, but directly to Miami. Now, forget about for a minute the fact that Portland and Miami are about as different as two markets could possibly get. But I think if I'm the Trailblazers, at some point you have to put your foot down. And so far they have. But if you don't find the right deal, and quite frankly, the Heat does not have much in terms of assets to trade Portland, controllable young assets, draft picks, things that the Blazers would be interested in as they try to reload behind Scoot Henderson, the number 3 pick in this year's draft. Like, you don't get to just say, okay, we'll accept dimes on the dollars for Dame. And try to say that 10 times fast, but like just to give him what he wants. Dame wants to go to Miami, fine. But if I'm the Blazers, like you have to accept what you want out of the deal. And if you don't get it, then Dame's going to have to be a disgruntled citizen until February. And then maybe he expands his list and says, okay, if you're not going to trade me to Miami, I'll accept a trade to these 5 teams. And then you can have an auction for him and get closer to full value for the guy. I just think it goes too far when the player is not only demanding to be traded after he signed a long-term deal, but he's trying to tell the team where they have to send him to, even if that means the team's not going to get a fair offer.
For sure. Yeah, I can't really argue with that too much because, when you first had posed the question, I was thinking like, well, I mean, they should try to get something for him, but the Nets proved that last offseason that you don't have to trade a player as soon as they request a trade. Kyrie and Kevin Durant requested trades, and they held on to them, and they forced them to play, and then they ended up trading them midseason and getting good packages in return for both. So if I'm Portland, I'm looking to trade him now because, they took Scoot Henderson 3. That's a sign that they're looking to rebuild and turn the page because, they're both point guards, so they probably aren't going to fit in too well together in the same lineup. So if I can get another team involved, like Boston or something, a team that's also a contender, you go to Dave and be like, look, we got a trade package with this team. They're a contender that's ready to win now. They want you, and then try to convince him to do that if you're not going to get a proper offer from Miami.
I agree. And I just think at some point the organizations, and usually I am totally free market, what's good for the players and the fans. And I just think at some point as an organization, you have to look out for what you're trying to do. And for the fans of Portland, you're trying to put together a winner. And look, the Blazers may be a team that's competing for a playoff spot with the Pelicans in the next 5 years. And so from a Pelicans perspective, like, yeah, you sure gut yourself, get rid of your superstar and get pennies back on the dollar. But I think if you're the Blazers, you got to put your foot down. All right. We're going to end the show with your rant, Spencer. And to preface this, we'll say exactly what this is. Fox Sports' Colin Cowherd ranked the top 10 quarterback head coach combinations in the NFL. No surprise that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes were number one. Probably no surprise that Derek Carr and Dennis Allen were not listed in the top 10. But what caught your eye is who was sitting at number three. Number two, by the way, was Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford, which may raise a couple eyebrows too, but they did win the Super Bowl 2 years ago. But your real problem came at number three.
Yeah, see a big problem with this. Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. And I normally agree with Colin more so like Skip Bayless. I don't agree with him on anything. Colin Cowherd do a lot of times. Like, I see what he's talking about. But this, what are you doing, man? Are you kidding me? Number three? For one, they haven't played a single down together as far as Russ has never played with Sean Payton. So we don't know how he's going to do in Payton's system. Plus, I mean, Payton took a year off from coaching, and Russ basically took a year off from football last year. The way he played, he was such a disaster there in Denver. So, to me, you've got to knock them down a lot. I know their resumes, if you're just looking at resumes, yeah, they probably would be three. But we're talking right now who the best coach quarterback combos are. I mean, right now, if you're telling me that you'd rather Sean Payton and Russell Wilson over Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor or Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni, and you're crazy, because these guys are just, I mean, those guys, for one, the quarterback's way better, a lot younger, more athletic, and the coaches, I feel like, are more in tune with the modern NFL. Sean Payton is last couple of years with the Saints wasn't quite as strong. Seemed like his offense was getting a little stale, so we'll see if they can rejuvenate it. But I wouldn't bet on it right away, especially in their first year together. So to me, ranking them as an elite quarterback head coaching duo is silly.
Yeah, and it occurs to me, Spencer, we had a discussion in the pre-production meeting about this. Russell Wilson, look, he had a bad year last year. Could he rebound under a head coach who has a history of working well with quarterbacks? Absolutely, he could. I mean, Russell Wilson probably will be quite a bit better than he was last year. But you look at what he was able to do in Seattle, and then as soon as he leaves, the Seahawks bring in Geno Smith, and he becomes a Pro Bowler. It starts to make you think, like, was Russell Wilson a product of that system? More so than he was an individual superstar, and the whole narrative was like, let Russ cook and all this stuff in Seattle. And maybe the Seahawks had it right. Maybe he was not that great of a player, and they were able to scheme him up, put good wide receivers around him, a good running game around him, a good defense around him, and make it work. And they won a Super Bowl and should have won two if it weren't for a mistake by Russell Wilson, by the way. Like, now he's in Denver, and yes, he's going to have a quarterback whisperer, if you will, although Sean Payton had Drew Brees for most of his career. So, who made whom there? I don't know. I agree with you. I think three is way too high. I'd be okay with putting it in the top 10. I have a lot of respect for Sean Payton and what he's done. I think Russell Wilson will be better. But number three, I just, and like, sometimes I think these guys, Cowherd, and you mentioned Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith, they're just doing stuff to get people to talk about it. And so I guess it's working. Yeah. But like Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow, John Harbaugh, Lamar Jackson, even Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, and I realized Sirianni hadn't been around a long time, Sean McDermott, Josh Allen, Mike McCarthy, who's won a Super Bowl, and Dak Prescott. Like, these aren't better than Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. I mean, what are we doing here?
Right.
I don't think that if you could draft quarterback coach combos, salary all being the same, it's a tough question. Like, Mahomes and Reid is clearly going to be the number one pick, but it's a pretty tough question. Who's your number two pick at that point? And but I'll tell you one thing: if Payton and Wilson aren't in my top five, I think I might go Allen and McDermott at that point. At number two, I'd have to think about it, but I would not get to Payton and Wilson for a little while.
Yeah, I'd go either Harbaugh and Lamar or Taylor and Burrow at number two. I mean, I like Burrow over Lamar, but I feel like Harbaugh's more experienced and a better head coach than Taylor. So it'd be, to me, it's close between those two.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think McCarthy and Prescott are up there too. I mean, as much as we like to bag on Mike McCarthy, like, he has won a Super Bowl. They do seem to make the playoffs basically every year. So the guy clearly is doing something right as well. So lots more football talk to come. As we mentioned, we'll talk NFL, college football on Monday, as well as the Home Run Derby. We'll have some odds for you. Do us a favor, subscribe to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. You'll get notifications on every show. You'll also get to see the cut-ups that producer Zoe makes, and kind of, you don't have to watch the whole hour-long show if you don't have the time, or you missed the live show. We can get those highlights for you. So check it out. Also, check out NOLA.com/Caesars. Caesars Sportsbook is our sponsor, and they've got a new sign-up offer just for you if you're a new user at NOLA.com/Caesars. Our thanks to Mikie Mahtook for stopping by. Our thanks to Zoe Collins-Rath, as always, our producer. And for Spencer the Guru, I'm Zach Ewing. Thanks for watching Bayou Bets, everybody.